Okay, are you ready for a difficult one? I think it's difficult. It's definitely wacky. We'll see. This is Mishlei 10:23. Kischok liksil asos zima v'chachma leish tavuna. And if there's the one word that you might not know is zima, but anyone want to try everything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, maybe it's to. It could be to a game,
Okay.
or like laughter.
Okay. Let's say like a game or laughter.
It is to a fool, or to a fool,
Yep.
which he does Zima.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say I'm gonna say asos I think is a noun. So is the doing of zima. Okay. So we'll
Um,
leave it untranslated for now.
Actually, I feel like I know that word from somewhere.
You know it from a recent parsha, maybe. It was in Kedoshim and Acharemos.
Oh, is it Rishis?
It
Wickedness?
is okay. So the Metzudas Tzion here says inyan maseh ra. So he says evil. Sorry, evil acts. Okay, that's not the one I was thinking of. We'll go through other translations later. Let's just get the basic structure out.
Okay.
Is that by
And
the Arios?
Yeah, it's by Rios. Yeah, Zimahi. It says it by a couple of them.
oh, right, yeah. Okay, and Chachma and
Yep.
wisdom is to a person of Tavuna, understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a
All right.
crazy one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So let's break it down here. Okay. So we have oops, sorry, hold on just a second. There we go. Okay. So we have here Kispoke Luxil, like a game or like a laughter or like anyone else have another word for spoke?
I mean, it could be sport.
Just
Yeah, that's game. Like jest, yeah, like a joke. Okay. So let's say game, laughter, and joke. Okay. To a fool is the doing of Zima. So Mitsustian says Zima is evil acts. Okay. Sadigon says he just translates this to the first half. Inyan hatoeva, sorry, asiyas hatoeva be'ene haksil kitzchok. The doing of an abomination, which again, evil acts, abomination, um, in the eyes of a fool is like a schok. Okay, so like a joke. Okay, like a prank. Okay, so we'll leave it like that. And then Meiri, I don't usually bring the Meiri at this point, but sometimes the Meiri does this thing where he'll give all the translations of a single word. So here um, he says, Zima ye amer lifamim al hamachshava. So sometimes Zima is referring to thought or plans. Okay, plans. Um, Como zimas ivelas chatas, rotzalam hamachshava b'inyan ha'ivelas tavi lede chatas. Okay, fine. Upam tamar al haniuf bifrat. Sometimes it's talking about like lewd acts, okay, like sexual promiscuity, okay, lewdness, okay. Como shnemar tami ba'rayos, like it says throughout the arayos, zimahi, it is lewd or it is like sexually inappropriate. Upam te'amer al derech klal al kol maseh ra. And sometimes it just means in general about evil acts. Como zamos ya'at. V'hakol yotzei mimakom echad, all of them come from the same source. V'hu inyan machshava, hein latov, hein lara. So zima comes from machshava, from thinking or planning, either for good or for bad. V'chol echad misbar lefi makoma, each one you should learn out from its context. Okay, so that's his general advice here. Okay, so let's see. So we have like a game or like laughter or like you know what, let's just put the Hebrew here. Like sachok, okay, which is either a game, laughter, or a joke to a fool is the doing of Zima, and wisdom to a person of understanding. Okay, so let's leave it like that for now. Obviously, we have questions. Our scroll says it is like sport to a fool to carry out his evil design. Wisdom is like sport to a man of understanding. Okay, so you see they have to fill in stuff because it's really ambiguous how to read it here. Living Nach says, for the fool, doing evil is like a laugh, but the discerning man has wisdom. Okay, so they say chachma leish tavuna, wisdom belongs to a person of understanding, okay, or discernment. And then Alder says as doing foul things. So I guess he's learning it like abomination, or maybe like lewdness. is sport for the fool, so is wisdom for the man of discernment. And I'm actually going to leave these three up here because they're sufficiently different. Usually we delete them because they're like ours, but I think we'll leave them up here. Okay, so we have a lot cut out for us. What are the questions here?
Isn't R scroll and alter, are they different?
Let's see. It is like a sport to carry out his evil design. So one difference is that Art Scroll's translating Zima as evil design, and Alder's learning as foul things. I'm not sure if foul things is supposed to be like abomination or lewdness, whereas Art Scroll seems more generic. And then so is wisdom for a man of discernment. Yeah, the second half is very similar. Yeah, I don't mind deleting it. Okay. Okay, so what are the questions here?
It
And we
seems
may
like
have
an
this, like, just a
unbalanced.
warning, by the way, this may be one where we, some days we have to like make full translations and number them so we can just talk about them easier. We might have to do that here because the syntax is really weird. Yeah, Zach, what were you gonna say?
I was just saying it already just seems imbalanced in terms of the comparison.
So what is the comparison here? Okay, because it clearly is, this is one where it sounds like there's two sides. And I definitely see the R score reading. Kischok l'ksil azozima. So like a schok is to a fool the doing of zima, so too is chachma like a schok to the ish tavuna. That sounds symmetrical, but it doesn't really like seem to make sense.
Like another interesting thing in the second half of the pasuk, it's like, it's like a person of understanding, versus like a chacham. Like what's do you hear what I'm saying? Meaning like,
well, person of understanding is the term for someone who has tavuna, and then chacham. Are you saying why does it attribute chachma to a person of understanding?
It seems like they're two different.
Yeah.
Either they're two different people, or it's like chachma will come to a person of understanding, in which case that person of understanding is not a chacham yet.
Well,
I guess my question is, what does it
let
mean?
me just remember, just reviewing here. So chachma is, according to almost everyone, chachma is on a lower level than understanding.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it still is a question you're asking, which is why does it speak about wisdom in association with a man of understanding? Okay, why not understanding? And the funny thing about this is I feel like we've had this question enough times in this chapter that like I almost want to think that this is the norm now, like we've definitely asked this question before on a different pasuk, but
Also, to elaborate on the question I was trying to ask before, is in the first half, there's like meaning it's to a fool that's doing something, or in the art scroll, it's to a fool to carry out his evil design. But in the second half, it's just to a man of understanding, meaning the doing evil acts is unsymmetrical.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so where is the symmetry?
According,
for example,
the,
it doesn't mention an action for the ish tavuna, man of understanding, but it does for the fool. Yeah, Isaiah?
Oh, I was gonna say, I guess art scroll fills in that symmetry because they say the chachma or the kischok is also for the second half.
Right, but Zach is pointing out the fact that it doesn't say the doing, it doesn't speak about action directly. So even though art scroll fills in the symmetry for the sport, it doesn't say like learning, learning of chachma or like teaching of chachma or speaking of chachma, just as chachma.
Yeah. Rabbi, is there a general trend of like a term that's generally juxtaposed with ksia, or it's just changes by the process?
There are, but neither of these two terms are common enough for me to classify it as such. Schok and zima.
Oh, I meant with ksia, like versus ish tavuna.
Oh, you mean on the other side? No, that will differ from pasuk to pasuk. Yeah. Okay. Good question though.
According to the translation that takes it as the discerning man has wisdom, isn't that pashut? Don't we know that?
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, so if you translate the second half literally, then isn't it obvious that the man of understanding has wisdom? Yeah.
Another question.
Yeah.
For the fool, when he does his like, is he playing this, I don't know, laughter or game or whatever we want to call the schok? Is that his like, is that a characteristic trait of his, like an agenda like he's trying to accomplish? Or is that just like a subconscious thing that he just does because he's a fool?
Okay, so let's just ask the broad question here, which is in what sense is the doing of Zima like schok, like schok to the fool? Yeah. So is it conscious? Is it unconscious? Is it what he sets out to do? Like, is it a result? Is it an objective description? Yeah.
Right.
You know, now Shiur's got me wondering. Let me just hold on. Let me just grab my. So just to repeat Shiur's question here: is Keel paired on the opposite side with the same thing every time? Oh, you know, this is frustrating. This particular, I'm using my Rabbeinu Yonah with the index, but it doesn't quote the full pasuk, so I would really have to look up each one. So, and there are surprisingly there are not surprisingly there are lots of pasukim with ksil in it, so we're not going to do that. But it is a good question. Okay, well, speaking of which, we do definitely have to ask what is the definition of ksil in this context. I'm sorry, I'm going to type this in English. Ksil in this context. And similarly, what is the definition of wisdom in this context? And then what is the definition of man of understanding in this context? Yeah. What else? Oh, did we ask what is Zima yet? No, I don't think we did.
No.
What is Zima in this context?
It's interesting that it's kiss schok and not just schok.
Right. That's true. Meaning he's not actually using this as, well, let's say if you say it's a game, right? He's not actually like playing like playing it as a game, right? It's just a comparison. So yeah, that's a good observation. Are these the only questions? I feel like this pasuk is sufficiently confusing that there should be more questions, but maybe not.
I mean, it also sounds like the ksil in this pasuk is a lot more. He's more worse than like your normal ksil.
Could be. I mean, we've kind of in our parak. Let me just look back at our parak again. I kind of forgot which again. I mean, I forget this every week, but which personalities we've discussed in the Monday night shiur in context, and which ones we haven't. Let's see here. So this, wait, I'm in the wrong safer. I know I'm not screen sharing. I just want to look this up for myself first. So we have done seal. So our very first pasuk had a seal, and then we had. Oh, so Shiur, we can answer your question from our parak. The first pasuk contrasted a ben chacham with a ben ksil. Okay. Then we had pasuk 18, which didn't have an opposite. That was machase sina sifse shaker omotzi diba hu ksil. One who conceals hatred has lying lips, and one who expresses slander is a ksil. And then we have our pasuk. So we haven't really had ksil that much. Yeah. Later on, I'll remind us of the definition of ksil we went over when we did the special session on the definition of ksil recently. But for now, we'll keep it blank.
I can ask kind of a series of questions.
Sure.
Which is basically starting with the relationship between, wisdom and a person of understanding and schok with a fool.
Yeah.
So like just trying to understand those relationships and like what those mean, because some of those relationships are easier, more intuitive. And then
Yeah.
from that, the question is how does that extra lack of symmetry play into it? Because he's saying there's a relationship, but now it's not just between schok and to fool, but it somehow includes evil acts or plans or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's also not even too it sounds like, at least by the way it's phrased in English, that it's not a fool who's doing that, but a fool is the doing of, which is very bizarre, meaning like that throws an added wrench into
Okay, so I'm going to ask this in
the relationship.
a shorthand way, which is why is all of the complexity front loaded onto the first half of the pasuk? Okay, meaning the second half is very simple, chachma to a man of understanding, but then all of the relationships and complexity are in that first half, and how much of that transfers over. Let's see, and how much of that transfers over to parallels in the second half.
I mean, and we could also unpack some of those complexities, meaning like, is the fool engaging in Zima? Is there a cause and effect between the fool and the Zima?
Yeah.
Meaning, is it a separate relationship between the fool and schok and this fool and Zima, or do two have to be combined to cause the other? Like there's a lot to unpack between the three.
I'm gonna actually put it over here. What is the relationship between the fool, his Zima, his and its joke-like quality, or its skok-like quality?
This might be what Zach literally just asked, but I also think Ariel might have asked it. Also, if I feel like if it looks like I'm interrupting anyone, it's probably the Wi-Fi. I'm just gonna preface that.
Okay.
Oh my God, I just realized. Okay. I was just wondering, are we really learning anything new, like about the because we have each tuna, I think, is kind of new, but I feel like Zach was saying right 4 seconds ago that it sounds like it's talking more about the Ksil. So I guess like what I'm asking is like, I feel like they're introducing a new character of like an ish tuna, because we haven't really done that. But it's not really saying so much about him.
Is another way of asking that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is another way of asking that, like, why not a chacham? Meaning like, or what was the we had other words for that, but
yeah, we had a navon, I think.
Navon, that was it.
Navon, I'm pretty sure we had the navon somewhere, or ish, maybe.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable just keeping that in part of question 7. Where's the definition of a man of understanding in this context?
I think maybe for this pasuk, it would be a good idea to ask also who's the audience.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's one that we definitely need to ask. Yeah. Who is the audience? And then I think we do need to ask you what's the practical. The practical thing is not at all clear from this.
It might just be the way I'm reading it, but it feels like the first half, like with chok, feels more like an action, whereas chachma, like it doesn't say pursuit of knowledge.
That was Zach's question about. I think we listed that one, which is, it doesn't mention action for the man of understanding, but it does for the fool. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, maybe we're ready to think at this point.
Wait, Rabbi
Yeah.
Yeah, quick question. Why did you ask why is he not man of understanding over there?
What is the definition of man of understanding? Why is he not a man of wisdom? Meaning if he has chachma.
Never mind. I thought it was understanding. Never mind.
Yeah, that's fine. No, you can ask it both ways. You could say like, why doesn't it ascribe understanding to the man of understanding, or why doesn't it call the man with wisdom a wise person?
No, I just read it wrong.
Yeah. Okay, so let us, I guess, have our thinking minute here. Let me just zoom out as much as I need to.
I think we might need 2 minutes for this one.
Yeah, let's do that, and I have to. Yeah.
2 exact minutes.
All right, so let's do 2 minutes. I forgot to queue up a YouTube video that we might need. Suspense.
Rabbi, can I ask a question on the Living Nach translation?
Yeah.
The way that the second part is written, but the discerning man has wisdom, is that like Art Scroll's definition where it's like a separate action, or is it more like he knows better?
I think it's saying the way they're translating is v'chachma li'ish tavuna. It's like chachma belongs to the ish tavuna. So I don't think it's referring to. I don't think they're referring to an action, and I also don't even think that they're plugging in the like sport into the second half. And there's like the thing I like about Living Nach is it's simpler. For the fool doing evil is like laugh, but the discerning man has wisdom, and it's just that it's less symmetrical, but the simplicity is an advantage there, you know. Okay, let's tackle this, and I think maybe just due to the two terms here, maybe if you can, just you'll have to identify for us which translation you're using for Schok and which one you're using for Zima, maybe because that'll just help us to like when we first hear what you're saying to get our bearings. So does anyone have anything on this?
I have like a sorry.
That's okay. You go ahead, Tamar.
Okay. This is just like an observation, I think, but I think that Slok, really any of the translations of it, it seems to me like it's characterized by like lack of seriousness and maybe like lack of consequences.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
There's one of the Mefarshim who definitely says that. So we'll keep that in mind when we go to the Mefarshim.
So that was sort of related to one of my questions. I feel like I got more questions out of the thinking minute.
Okay, that's fine.
Answers. But just following up on that translation or whatever, does Skog have to be a negative connotation, or could it be a neutral or positive connotation?
It could be both positive or negative or neutral, I think.
Okay, and just another question to add to the list is, why does it say like Skog? Meaning, like, it could just say Skog to fool is doing of Zima, but it says
Isaiah mentioned
like,
that, but I forgot to add that. Did we talk about? Yeah, let's see. I'll add that here. And why like spoke instead of spoke?
Can I make a move?
Oh,
sure.
Isaiah, you could go first.
You sure?
Yeah, I mean, with that hair, I can't,
Okay. So I think I have an approach to the pasuk, but it's pretty like simple and straightforward and pashut, I think.
Okay.
But
that's
I think it's pasuk about like general decision making approaches.
Yeah.
So for the seal, I think it's saying like he makes a joke out of doing things which are wrong and doesn't believe there are consequences to them, or doesn't think about the fact that there are consequences to them.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. As opposed to the person with understanding, sorry, I had an alarm going off. He realizes that there are consequences to actions in general, and so then he applies chachma, like mishlei, thinking to his decision making.
Okay, so let's, because what you said is similar to what well, actually, Ariel, did you want to? Do you have a completely different approach, or it's along similar lines? The idea is very close to what Tamar said.
Oh, I think it's similar.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you say what you're gonna say also, and then we'll.
It seems similar in my mind, but I was gonna say that maybe the contrast of the pasuk, which I think what they're getting to is that the ksel, actually, a man of understanding, he always uses chachma to get to a certain destination in his goal or whatever he wants to do in his life, which will obviously yield better results. And to him, that's like his reality. That's what he's always going to do. That is like, to him, that's like it's like a fun game. It's like what he does. Whatever it is.
Right.
However, the ksel, he just doesn't use that. He doesn't use chachma in his daily life, So to him, it's almost like it's just, and that is his routine. I mean, I don't. So here's the thing: I don't know I don't know what he uses, but let's just say it's nothing, right? Sometimes he could get lucky and he may think of like a great idea, whatever. But like most of the times, like because he's Excel, he just won't have a thought out idea, which will just naturally lead him into, Zima, whatever that Zima is.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just make sure I'm understanding you correctly, because I think Isaiah and Ariel are using two different translations for the second half. Ariel, you're saying that you're using art scrolls, which is that wisdom is like schok to the ish tvuna, I think. And Isaiah, I think you're saying that the Ksiel makes his Zima into schok, but the ish tvuna uses chachma. And you're going like living nach. Is that accurate for both of you?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
definitely going living.
Yeah. Okay, so both of those are appealing. Okay, I think let's just start. I think because living nach is simpler. Let's just try fleshing out Tamar and Isaiah's idea, and I'm calling it both because I think they pair together until we see how it ends up. Okay, so let's just take that first half again. So the Ksiel, instead of just doing Zima, he makes it like a joke, and you're saying joke implies like a lack of seriousness or a lack of seeing the consequences. Okay, now are we saying, let's go back to the question Ariel asked a while ago, which is he like consciously making it into a joke, or like a joke is just the way that Shlomo is describing it from an objective standpoint? What do you guys say? Like, in other words, is he making it into a joke-like thing in order to avoid thinking about the consequences, or he's just so far removed from Chachma that that's the way he relates to it?
Oh man, they're both good possibilities.
Yeah, it could be two ideas, but...
Oh man, let's say he makes things into a joke. Let's make it more, meaty. Yeah.
Well, Isaiah, did you have a particular meaning in mind when you said it?
I think it's either one. I think he does
fine.
not employ rational decision making when he chooses to do that.
All right, so then let's play that off with the second half then and see if that helps us. So Chachma is to an Ish Tevuna. So the Ish Tevuna uses Chachma in his decision making. Would this be a good time to just go over a basic definition of Chachma versus Tevuna, or not? Because I think that question now is going to be relevant of why are we talking about Chachma for the Ish Tevuna if he's the Ish Tevuna,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So basic definition that we did last time, at least, was that Chachma is knowledge that is received, whereas Tevuna is knowledge that's derived from your own understanding. Okay, so Chachma would be like when we learn an idea in Mishlei, that's a piece of Chachma, which is that if you do this, you'll get this result, or like this is what you should do in such and such a case. So it's like a fixed principle here. Okay. And then Tevuna is the ability to take a bunch of fixed principles and derive new ideas, either by new applications or new universals, or take new universals out of that, and then from the new universal derive new applications. So the question now is, does the fact that it's using both terms, Chachma and Tevuna, in the second half, help us to further clarify the first half and what the relationship is between the two in this idea? If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I think, in the way that I was thinking about the pasuk, it's using both terms in the second half to say that the Ish Tevuna relates to decision making in like a chachma way. Right. He uses those ideas, whereas the Ksiel doesn't.
Right. Okay. So then, so that is using the chachma in the simplest term. But I guess the question now is, why would it need to talk about him as a Ish Tevuna then? Like, why would you need to go all the way to the Ish Tevuna? I think here you could just use the chacham if you're just saying someone who acts with chachma.
I feel like it might be making a distinction, like when someone's at the level of a navon, then they have mastery over chachma already, and it comes easily to them.
Okay. Okay, so there are Mefarshim who take that approach for the schok part, okay? That a schok is something, when you laughing is something that is effortless and automatic. And that's something that it's describing chachma to an ish tevuna is automatic. Now, that idea sounds like a different interpretation for the first half, So can we take that? I mean, I think that's going to be a separate idea, So I'm not dismissing it, Shira, but I think it's
Yeah, that's
separate,
fine.
separate track than what Isaiah is saying, which we can explore later.
Yeah.
I think to answer your question, like
Yeah.
maybe you could say a person who is a chacham, he understands, the practical, benefits of good decision making in certain things or in the things he's learned, the ideas that he's gained, but he doesn't like acknowledge that there's this whole or he doesn't, not that he doesn't acknowledge, but he doesn't understand there's a whole system of approaching decision making.
Right.
It's different than knowing, oh, I shouldn't steal because it has X effect. It's like
Right.
I'm gonna approach all my choices with rational decision making. Is maybe
right
the way he
Okay,
gets
good.
to decisions.
Okay, so then I agree with that description. So then the question is, how is that the opposite of the ksil? Or in what framework is that being portrayed as the opposite? We have the ish tuvuna sees things in a systemic way, whereas the chacham only. I think I've used this term before in terms of the tzaddik, but like the the tzaddik actually makes decisions in a systemic way. The ish tuvuna sees things in a systemic way. The chacham just sees things in a linear, long-term consequences way. Okay, so we've got systemic thinking in the ish tuvuna, or thinking beneath the surface, or above the surface, or whatever you want to say. How is that an appropriate pairing or opposite, antithesis, foil, whatever you want to say, to the ksil relating to something as a non-serious matter and that allowing him to justify zima? And I'll ask another question, which I don't know if I have the right to ask, but like, why is zima? Like I feel like it could just use the word foolishness or like evil, like based on this. Zima is this like very confusing word of like evil plotting, plans, lewdness. If we can answer that, I'll be happier, because it's just such an unusual term. And like the Miri is saying, it's a vague term, right? The Miri says it means either thinking / planning, or it means like sexual perversions, or it means like bad actions. It's a very, very unclear term, So like, why employ that when it sounds like our idea would work pretty fine if we just said foolishness or evil?
I have an answer.
Sure.
Maybe you could say that's the very point. That's the point, that the vagueness of it is the point of the pasuk, is to teach you that, I could be just like putting this in my own idea right now, but it could be that there's really no boundaries in what the ksil will go into if he doesn't utilize chachma.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was thinking the similar. Like, he has no framework with which he approaches decisions.
Uh-huh.
He's
Like-
wild,
Yeah.
there's nothing grounding him.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific story in Tanakh that is known for using that word that it's referencing?
I can really quickly check. Oh my, there are lots of references here. All Torah's definition in the dictionary, by the way, translates it as either plan, device, or wickedness. And then under the two definitions, it says plan or purpose. That's the generic one. And then if you have a negative connotation, it's evil device, wickedness, or unchastity, licentiousness. Yeah, I there are too many references here to look through. And I don't know the references well enough to be able to say whether they're associated with specific stories. Yeah, I mean, the only time I can think of it in actually, I don't even have to say the only time I can think of it. I could just double check. Let's just limit ourselves to Chumash for a second, okay? In the Chumash, then hold on. In the Chumash, it's only used 4 times, and it's all in the context of prohibited sexual relations. And I can tell you which ones, if that matters. Erbas isha ubita losagale es bas benav es bas bita losikaf lagalos erbasa sha'ara hena zimahi. So that is having relations with a woman and her daughter. That's considered zima. Okay, I'm not translating the whole pasuk. And then the next one is prostituting your daughter, like making her into a prostitute, which according to the shiur I gave 2 Wednesdays ago, then that was specifically a prostitute for avodah zarah purposes. And then the next one is when ish asher yikach es ishav es imah zimahi. Oh, so that's the same thing. Is a man who marries a woman and her mother. So it's got like licentiousness, but it's like two of them are incest. Two of them, well, all of them have to do with family, like daughters and mothers, and then your own daughter. So that's why like I guess it's worse than lewd acts is like. So I guess that's why I decided to go and translate it as abomination. It's like a very very like inappropriate incestuous or like tinged with incest type thing.
I think it speaks to the point of the idea that's being developed, though, that they're going against like the natural
Yeah,
decision making
right,
and
right.
just acting out of desire.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like a bypassing of the ordinary emotions that would stop you, but because you're making it
Yeah.
into a joke or a game or a not serious thing, then like it's then then it's acceptable. I mean, I don't know the details of this, but I feel like you read stuff about like crimes like this that occur on like college campuses, and I'm not talking about for like date rape or something like that. I'm talking about like at parties or at like things like that you got to assume that this kind of thing happens there, where like it's in an environment of non-serious joking around and partying, and then that allows you to go too far, to either. And I'm not even talking about like necessarily the sexual stuff, but like this definitely happens with property damage and vandalism. It definitely happens with like, I'm sure, with like hazing and stuff like that. It's like this. It's you put yourself into a non-serious framework of mind, and then that allows you to feel that there are no consequences here, and then that allows you to justify the evil that you're doing. So the question, just to go back to Isaiah's initial observation, so is that just being contrasted with, and each tuna has chachma instead of that? Like I do think that the first half is very nuanced and sophisticated, and I feel like the second half is still a little too obvious. I don't know if that's just my subjective feeling.
I have like a unpolished thought that
Sure.
might address the aspect in the second half and could maybe be plugged into some of the other ideas as well.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was thinking that basically there's elements of propriety that can be taken in one of two ways, or impropriety that could be taken in one of two ways. And a person could either take subtle improprieties seriously and respond to them seriously, or there's another equally possible reaction a person can have, and that could be just to laugh at the awkwardness or the funniness, even, just like something slightly inappropriate. It's not like really taboo, it's not really bad, it's just a little inappropriate. So I think that a fool might be someone who laughs at it. Oh, what's the big deal? It's nothing bad, no one was hurt, it's just funny. And I think that in the first half he's saying that this relationship to small improprieties, to make light of it, is equal to those to much worse abominations, in the sense that you lose your sensitivity to impropriety. And if you just follow that road down, if you look into the future of where that lighthearted reaction to small impropriety leads, is only one destination, and that's those abominations. And so in the second half, I think that we can form a relationship that just mimics the first half, and say that the same way a person of understanding relates to wisdom, will also cause them to engage ultimately in the opposite of Zima acts, meaning in good acts.
Yeah. Okay, good. Could we, I really like that structurally. Could we just explain that a little bit? So I understand how relating to Zima acts in a joking, humorous way or whatever opens the gates to just nothing holding you back from going all the way in. So now, what exactly? Can we maybe give an example also of the ish tvuna, the way that he relates to the chachma that's similar to that, then that allows like the full gates of chachma to open.
So I
I
mean,
have
I
a
can
suspicion, but yeah.
So I can only just speculate, maybe think out loud, because
Yeah.
I didn't fully finish the thought in my head, but
Yeah.
I sort of feel like when a person of understanding is thinking about wisdom, they're trying to get out the wisdom, meaning like they're trying to understand why it's valuable, why it's worth knowing. They're trying to understand its inherent usefulness. And
Yeah.
if you're always trying to understand the inherent usefulness of wisdom, you are gonna inevitably end up implementing it. It's going to end up trickling into how you interact in your life. Yeah, I mean, that's just one
Okay.
thinking aloud.
I hear that, but I'll tell you one thing also that I understand why you made this move, but I don't know if it's necessary to make it. So you wanted to say that he'll do the opposite of Zima, which is good act. But I think your original question about the fact that it doesn't mention him doing anything here is significant. I think it is more conservative to say that instead of, just like the seal's joking attitude will open the gates and allow him to engage fully in Zima, the Ish Tvuna's similarly Kiskok attitude will allow him to engage fully in Chachma, in understanding, in knowledge, in the world of knowledge, to delve into the world of knowledge, so it's not talking about action, and that's why it doesn't say action.
Yeah, I have to think about that. I mean,
Sure.
I kind of am a fan of like plugging in things but that he leaves unsaid, because I feel like he takes
I'm totally fine with that also.
I have to think, I have to play that out.
I guess I was just I was thinking about your first your initial observation that it doesn't like allude to, it doesn't even allude to action. In other words, I'm definitely fine putting in kiskok, but for some reason I feel it's more significant that the asos zima is chachma here, like that it's the that's the equivalent that we're supposed to like to focus on,
Yeah, I have to think about that a little
Sure.
more. I guess
Can
like I
give
didn't have it.
I'll give an idea along those lines just to fully like express this here. And I ask the pardon of anyone who was in my shiur about telling about the role of humor in Torah, which we did like a couple weeks ago. But I read a lengthy Richard Feynman anecdote, which I'm going to read in its entirety again because this is one of my top Richard Feynman anecdotes, and I think appreciating the context is necessary here. So we're going to switch to that. If you've heard this before, you can take a break at this point. Okay, so this is Richard Feynman from the book Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. For those who don't know, Richard Feynman was a Nobel Prize winning physicist, worked on the Manhattan Project, and also was one of the ones who like solved the problem with the Challenger disaster. So he says, at Cornell, I'm sharing the screen, right? Okay. At Cornell, I'd work on preparing my courses, and I'd go over to the library a lot and read through the Arabian Nights and all the girls that would go by. He was a little into Zima, but when it came to do some research, I couldn't get to work. I was a little tired. I wasn't interested. I couldn't do research. This went on for what I felt was a few years, but when I go back and calculate the timing, it couldn't have been that long. Okay, okay. Perhaps nowadays I wouldn't think it was such a long time, but then it seemed to go on for a very long time. I simply couldn't get started on any problem. I remember writing one or two sentences about some problem in gamma rays, and then I couldn't go any further. I was convinced that from the war and everything else, the death of my wife, I'd simply burn myself out. During this period, I would get offers from different places, universities and industry, with salaries higher than my own. And each time I got something that like that, I would get a little more depressed. I would say to myself, look, they're giving me these wonderful offers, but they don't realize that I'm burned out. Of course I can't accept them. They expect me to accomplish something, and I can't accomplish anything. I have no ideas. Finally, there came in the mail an invitation from the Institute for Advanced Study. Einstein, von Neumann, Weil, all these great minds. They write to me and invite me to be a professor there. And not just a regular professor. Somehow they knew my feelings about the Institute, how it's too theoretical, how it's not there's not enough real activity and challenge. So they write, we appreciate that you have a considerable interest in experiment and in teaching, so we have made arrangements to create a special type of professorship, if you wish, half professor at Princeton University and half at the Institute. Institute for Advanced Study, special exemption, a position better than Einstein even. It was ideal. It was perfect. It was absurd. It was absurd. The other offers had made me feel worse up to a point. They were expecting me to accomplish something. But this offer was so ridiculous, so impossible for me to ever live up to, so ridiculously out of proportion. The other ones were just mistakes. This was an absurdity. I laughed at it while I was shaving, just thinking about it. And then I thought to myself, you know, what they think of you is so fantastic, it's impossible to live up to it. You have no responsibility to live up to it. It was a brilliant idea. You have no responsibility to live up to what other people think you ought to accomplish. I have no responsibility to be like they expect me to be. It's their mistake, not my failing. It wasn't a failure on my part that the Institute for the Advanced Study expected me to be that good. It was impossible. It was clearly a mistake. And at the moment, I appreciated that possibility that they might be wrong. I realized that it was also true of all the other places, including my own university. I am what I am, and if they expected me to be good and they're offering me some money for it, it's their hard luck. Okay, now we're getting to our main point, but this is all relevant. Then, within the day, by some strange miracle, perhaps he overheard me talking about it, or maybe he just understood me, Bob Wilson, who was head of the laboratory there at Cornell, called me in to see him. He said in a serious tone, Feynman, you're teaching your classes well, you're doing a good job, and we're very satisfied. Any other expectations we might have had are a matter of luck. When we hire a professor, we're taking all the risks. If it comes out good, all right. If it doesn't, too bad. But you shouldn't worry about what you're doing or not doing. He said it much better than that, and it released me from the feeling of guilt. Okay, here we go. Then I had another thought. Physics disgusts me a little bit now, but I used to enjoy doing physics. Why did I enjoy it? I used to play with it. I used to do whatever I felt like doing. It didn't have to do with whether it was important for the development of nuclear physics, but whether it was interesting and amusing for me to play with. When I was in high school, I'd see water running out of the faucet growing narrower, and wonder if I could figure out what determines that curve. I found it was rather easy to do. I didn't have to do it. It wasn't important for the future of science. Somebody else had already done it. That didn't make any difference. I'd invent things and play with things for my own entertainment. So I got this new attitude. And now that I am burned out and I'll never accomplish anything, I've got this nice position at the university teaching classes, which I rather enjoy. And just like I read the Arabian Nights for pleasure, I'm going to play with physics whenever I want to without worrying about any importance whatsoever. Within a week, I was in the cafeteria and some guy fooling around throws his plate in the air. As the plate went up in the air, I saw it wobble and I noticed the red medallion of Cornell on the plate going around. It was pretty obvious to me that the medallion went around faster than the wobbling. I had nothing to do, so I started to figure out the motion of the rotating plate. I discovered that when the angle is very slight, the medallion rotates twice as fast as the wobble rate, 2-to-1. It came out of a complicated equation. Then I thought, is there some way I can see it in a more fundamental way by looking at the forces or the dynamics, why it's 2-to-1? I don't remember how I did it, but I ultimately worked out what the motion of the mass particles is and how all the accelerations balance to make it out 2-to-1. I still remember going to Hans Bethe and saying, hey, Hans, I noticed something interesting. Here the plate goes round and round, and the reason it's 1-to-2 is, and I showed him the accelerations. He says, Feynman, that's pretty interesting, but what's the importance of it? Why are you doing it? Ha, I say, there's no importance whatsoever. I'm just doing it for the fun of it. His reaction didn't discourage me. I had made up my mind. I was going to enjoy physics and do whatever I liked. I went on to work out equations of wobbles. Then I thought about how electron orbits start to move in relativity. Then there's the Dirac equation in electrodynamics, and then quantum electrodynamics. And before I knew it, it was a very short time, I was working really with the same old problem that I love so much that I had stopped working on when I went to Los Alamos, my thesis type problems, all those old fashioned wonderful things. It was effortless. It was easy to play with these things. It was like uncorking a bottle. Everything flowed out effortlessly. I almost tried to resist it. There was no importance to what I was doing, but ultimately there was. The diagrams and the whole business that I got the Nobel Prize for came from piddling around with that wobbling plate. Okay, and that's the moral of the story there. So I don't think it's too hard to see the connection to what I was suggesting for what Zach was saying here, is that just like the seal would be stopped from fully engaging in Zima in the worst abominable acts, but then because he makes it into like a game and a joke, then it removes all of the restrictions, and then he goes all in, and there's no telling how far he's going to go. So too the Ish Tvuna, who Feynman was the Ish Tvuna, right? But he had an obstacle is he couldn't get new chachma, or he couldn't get new wisdom. It may be using chachma here as just in a generic term, because he was not making it into a game. He was making it into a goal or into a matter of prestige or like expectations. But once he made it into a game and he wasn't taking it seriously and getting it caught up in all of those ego issues of like, well, what if I fail? Like, what if I don't produce? Like, what if if I'm dried up? That's what allowed him to like just be free in his thinking and like fully engage in chachma in that same way. So that's what I was thinking for like filling in the other part of Zach's idea, but with chachma as the parallel to aso zima instead of like doing good actions.
That's cool.
Okay, good. I'll take a cool. Yeah. And again, I think you could learn it the other way also. I think it could be, I think this was just a little bit more conservative in terms of just the chachma itself, you know?
Yeah, I'm wondering if I wonder if we can read it through with that in mind and see if the questions are answered, like the like and the other little bits
Sure.
that seem confusing.
So, yeah. So what is the comparison here? Where's the symmetry? I think that we definitely answered with this, right? Like, I think that's pretty good. Why does it speak about wisdom in association with a man of understanding and not understanding? So that one, according to this idea, then it really is, I really am talking about deriving new understanding. And again, it's not essential that we use the technical definitions for all of them. Like you could argue it would be weird if it said utavuna leish tavuna. That would just be weird to using chachma here. I'm comfortable with that. If you're not, then you could work out a chachma idea. If you translate the second half literally, isn't it obvious that the man of understanding has wisdom? So we're not taking it obviously here, or sorry, we're not translating it literally. We're saying we're adding the word kaschok. In what sense is the doing of zima like schok to the fool? So it's like schok because he's not actually doing it as a joke. He's relating to it with the lack of seriousness like a joke. What's the relationship between the fool, his zima, and the schok-like quality? Why like schok and not schok? So I think we are answering that, right? I think that's all the same question. What is the definition of ksil in this context? So I think ksil here, last definition we had of ksil is someone who's addicted to, it was a pleasure addict, a veteran pleasure addict, I think is what we ended up saying, or something like that, right? That he's not like the nar or the pesi who might be overwhelmed by his yetzer, or he might have formed a habit, but you could still break him of it. He's all in, and it might be, if we're using that technical definition, it might be that he will be prone to going all in, but maybe the youth will not. Like, might be that there's still like forces holding back the youth from like going all in on this stuff, even if he makes it into a joke, like you don't see, I mean, maybe it's just we don't hear reports of it, but like you don't, I mean, maybe this is just anecdotal, so you can just feel free to ignore what I'm about to say. Like the people who do the really bad things, like either they have mental illnesses or they're not youths. Like I mean, and it could just be circumstantial reasons, like say like the serial killers, like the real skilled ones, like it's not like you have I mean, maybe you do. I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, forget it, Ned. There's no. I boxed myself into a corner there. I'm not gonna posit facts to support this like tentative reading. Okay, what's the definition of wisdom? So we're saying wisdom is just a new insight. Really more tavuna. What's the definition of man of understanding? A person who is a real thinker who can derive new understanding. See, I think it has to be talking about an ish tavuna. It can't be talking about a chacham, because the ish tavuna, the chacham is totally dependent on other people to give him ideas. We need to be talking about someone who can derive new ideas. Oh, you know what? Sorry. We can use chachma in the technical sense. He's deriving new ideas from chachma. In other words, like for Feynman, the plate wobbling was the chachma. Is he just noticed like the equations and stuff? That wasn't the tefuna. The tefuna was deriving a new theory from it. So the ish tefuna relates to like facts and pre-established things that are already set in stone. That's what he relates to. If he relates to it in the schok way, then he'll get like new insight out of it. What is zima in this context? Really bad stuff. Who's the audience? And what's the practical application? So this is an interesting one, because this would have a practical application for both sides, right? That if you tell yourself, let's say you are doing actions that are at the threshold of what you define as acceptable for yourself, so this is giving you a warning that once you make it into a thing that is like not serious, that is what can allow you to cross the threshold. And that is why, I mean, I was using an example before of like college parties, but like I think this is one of the dangers of the party atmosphere, because the party atmosphere can cause this mentality to attach to many things that you would not attach that way if it was not in the party atmosphere. Again, whether it's like reckless behavior or criminal activity or like other stuff like that, so it's a warning to people who would tell themselves, oh, I will never do Zima. Well, guess what? If you are in a situation where you're relating to it like Skok, and that instinctual drive is there, that might cause you to go into Zima, you know? And for the each Tavuna, I think this is advice for, I mean, you know, that the whole, I can, what do you call it? I can share this later on. This whole Feynman thing comes from a blog post I wrote. I either write or read this every year that I get in a rut. You know, like I had I go through these periods of writer's block where I'm not writing, you know, and then I always need to remind myself to just play with Torah. Oh no, I have an example of this from last week. Okay, this is an example from last week, right? So I was in a rut. And I didn't know. I always am in danger of burning out at the end of the year. I didn't know what to teach for my weekly Chumash methodology shiur. You know, I have a Chumash methodology shiur on Wednesday. You know, so I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go back to my roots, and that means different things at different times. So I went back to Bruce Lee, right? So Bruce Lee is who taught me all. You know, is where I really became a teacher. And then I was like, you know, and I actually, it's funny, I didn't think about this with Feynman. You know, I didn't think about the Feynman exam. I was like, you know what? They hired me for this job, and like I can teach whatever I want. And like right now, my love for Bruce Lee's teachings is being rekindled. I'm gonna go ahead and just give a Bruce Lee shiur, you know. So I gave my Bruce Lee shiur, and it opened up like new activity and new channels of like activity and creativity, and it went over really great. And like it ended up being like really good because I was playing again, you know. I wasn't like forcing myself to like produce, you know. I was playing again. So this is a advice for getting rid of a block for an ish tavuna, and advice about not getting rid of a block for someone who's trending towards Ksil, you know. Okay,
I have a question about this idea.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, say it again tomorrow.
Do you think these are like really opposites, or are they just two different things that can come out of a smoke?
It's a good question. You know, like I can see it being both. The only thing that makes me think it's definitely safer to say it's two things that could come out of smoke, but I have to think that there's something about the mood that the mind is put into that dissolves resistances and blocks. You know, something that the humor puts the mind into, and that I feel like that's a deeper psychological insight, and that might make the two more related. I don't really know. Yeah. Okay, I think this qualifies as a complete idea. If there's no questions on this, then I want to show you one idea that Ken and I came up with, and then we can do Mefarshim until we stop if you want, unless anyone else has anything on this idea. Okay, so let me show you. So one of the nice things. So Ken was my first real Mishlei Chavrusa, and one of the nice things about a Chavrusa is you get a common vocabulary. You get telepathy, right? Where you don't need to actually talk to each other. You can just like say one thing and like instantly like know what each other's saying. So we were working on this for quite a while, and then Ken just goes, you know, Ken has an idea. And he says it's fun to do bad things, and I instantly know that he's referring to a 2000 and when was this? What year was this? I can't see the date. I think it was a 2013 YouTube video, which I'm going to show you now. Okay, and then I'll connect it to the thing. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the sound. Share sound. Okay.
Latarian Milton is not your typical 7-year-old. Few his age have ever driven an SUV up and down several busy streets. It all started at his mother's townhouse. Latarian says he took the car keys and hopped into his grandmother's Dodge Durango.
When I came through the back door, I looked on the counter, my keys were gone. I took my grandma's car because I got mad at my mom, and then I saw and had my friend come in, and he smokes with cigarettes.
He started the vehicle and put it into gear.
I yanked the thing.
And off they went. Two 7-year-olds alone on the road. Latarian drove several miles through Lake Park and Palm Beach Gardens.
We got the one call that I told you about of a driver in the vehicle who looked too short to be able to see over the steering wheel.
Along the way, he ran over 2 mailboxes, hit 2 parked cars in a Costco parking lot, and struck 2 moving cars near Walmart.
I want to do it because it's fun. It's fun to do bad things, to drive into a car.
But did you notice decided you could perhaps kill somebody?
Yes, but I wanted to do hood rat stuff with my friend.
It all ended on Investment Lane and Consumer Drive. That's where Letarian hit the curb and sideswiped the sign. The SUV took most of the beating, snapping off one of his axles and wheels. A grandmother's rage.
I want to whip his behind. That's what I want to do right now. If I thought they wouldn't take me to jail, I'd whip his behind right now.
You don't think he should be punished for all of this?
Just a little bit, no video games for a whole weekend.
And one unusual story for police.
Are you sorry?
Yes.
You understand that now your grandma's going to have to pay to have those cars fixed because you hit those cars.
Can my mom help her?
Okay, so yeah, so it's fun to do bad things. So that was the idea that Ken and I had. So I think we were learning it as it's like a game, okay? And what we were saying, and I think we were learning Zima. I prepared this a couple weeks ago, so I don't remember the exact details. The Zima was referring to evil actions, okay, in general. But what we were saying is like this: is there's two reasons you could be doing evil actions. Okay, one is for the pleasure, all right. The other is, and that's what we'll call a first order motive. Okay, that you're doing it for the thing itself. You know, so you're stealing in order to get money. You know, you're if you're doing a sexual thing, it's for the sexual pleasure. You know, if you're whatever it is, all right. But this is saying that the Ksil will make it into a game, which means that he enjoys the persona. He gets entertainment out of the persona of being a person who does bad things. Okay, and it's not just for the pleasure. It's for like you see like the way Letarian was talking about it. Not only he says it's fun to do bad things, but when he was talking about his friend, that my friend who smoked cigarettes, you know, like a 7-year-old smokes cigarettes, like that image of like the kid who's doing bad things, you know. So it's a higher order motive for doing the thing that actually entrenches you even more in the activities, because you are doing it as like a sport, you know. If you're doing it for the pleasure, so then that's like, I don't know. So then you'll do it whenever there's a pleasurable opportunity. But once you make it into like a I don't know exactly how to say it, other than a persona or like a higher level thing, then you're engaged in it in a different way. Like I'll give you another example. I started watching a documentary on Netflix about some art heist, and I didn't finish it. But they had a guy who was a professional, he was a professional art like thief, you know, and he had done all of these escapades, and you could tell from the interview he just took tremendous pride in being the guy who can like pull it off, you know, who can like do all these art things. And it wasn't even about the art anymore, and it wasn't about the money. It was about being the guy who can like mastermind these things and then do this, you know. So that's for the first half. And the Ish Tvuna is relating to Chachma in a second order way also. The Chacham is just relating to Chachma in terms of the individual ideas that he gets and the benefit he gets from those ideas. The Ish Tvuna is relating to it in a second order manner. And what was the idea we said? Hold on, I'm just going to skim down to my notes here. I jotted down notes. Meta, both are operating on a meta level with regards to their stuff. It's fun to do bad things. Not it's fun to drive in a car. Okay, so driving a car is one thing, and that's not what Letarian said, right? It's fun to do bad things, you know. It's a rebellion. He's enjoying the fact that it's prohibited. The Ish Tvuna is on a meta level of Chachma. He's not just memorizing the facts or getting an internal structure of the idea. He's on a level of abstraction above. The opposite, this is in note form, sorry, not full sentences. The opposites are, whereas the Ksil is searching for the rules. Oh, this is the good thing. The Ksil is searching for the rules in order to break them, in order to get pleasure, and it's going to be bad for him. The Ish Tvuna is looking for the rules in order to understand them and to benefit from them. So they're both, that's the thing. They're both not relating to particulars. They're both relating to the rules. The Ksil is relating to the rules because he gets the pleasure out of breaking them. The Ish Tvuna is relating to the rules because it allows him to derive higher levels of abstraction.
That's a question on that.
Yeah.
Where is that? Where is this stemming from the Ksil?
Yeah. So given what we've said about the Ksil, it's not. It must be that it's just there's a higher level of pleasure in it, because the Ksil, I think, still is a pleasure seeker. and especially the way we've been looking at it now, he's not motivated by ego in the same way that, say, the Avil is, where ego is the main thing. But it must be like there is a pleasure of let's say, like, for a kid when they rebel, a pleasure of doing the thing that your parents don't want you to do. Or like the way Mishlei says it when it's talking about, it says, stolen waters are sweet and bread eaten in hidden places is pleasant, and that's a metaphor for committing adultery, that it says, that, like, it's not just the point. This is the way Chazal take it, is it's a metaphor for committing adultery, and the reason why they use that is they're trying to bring out the idea. Don't think that adultery is just the pleasure of the act itself. It's the fact that it is prohibited that gives you an extra pleasure. And that's what the Ksil is, I think, why the Ksil likes doing this.
I see, meaning there are two different ways of having pleasure. One is the act itself, and one is just the fact that you are doing something that you shouldn't be
break
doing.
the rules. Yeah. I actually, when I was first started summarizing this, before I read my summary, I wasn't putting the proper emphasis on that. I was putting the emphasis on the persona, but I forgot that we abandoned that idea.
Right.
That's the game. The game is that it's the, so, the way that games work in most cases is it's not the action that's fun. It's the fact that you're winning. It's the engagement in the rules, your relationship to the rules, that makes it fun. The Ksil, it's breaking the rules, and for the Ish Tuna, it's transcending the rules.
What do you mean by transcending the rules?
Because you're taking all of the chachma that people just take for granted, and you're coming up with a new abstraction that like sheds new insight into the whole thing. You're going one level up. Let's say, like in Gemara, right? Like, you have all the facts, but Svara is where you're going one level of abstraction higher than that. You're treating these not as absolute things, but as the material for coming up with a theory.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, can we just circle back to what the differences between mine and Isaiah's and the Lichter's? I'm sorry, the blanks as far.
Yeah. The blanks were saying that Chachma, so they were taking the living Nach thing.
Right.
Oh, we ended up with yours, Ariel, didn't we? Because we did end up putting, I think because of Zach's move, we ended up putting Kischok into the second half. But what Isaiah initially said was the Ksil bypasses the guilt by making it into a joke, whereas the Ish Tuna just is relating to the decision making with Chachma. And I don't think we ended up coming up with an idea that had, like, I still feel that that's a little lopsided, where, like, it is a very basic idea in the second half, but a very sophisticated idea in the first half, and I'm still kind of bothered by that. But it does work out, like,
by the living Nachsa.
Yeah.
And what's bothering you about that?
What's bothering me about that, I don't know, something I feel, maybe this is just my standards of symmetry, but I feel like I would like to see an idea that is as, like, much of a chiddush for the second half as we had for the first half. Maybe that's just me. Maybe, and we've seen psukim before, even in our parak, about where the second, where the chiddush is primarily in one half.
Right.
I just feel I feel like it's like this. I feel like it's like kischok l'ksil aso zima and basic mishlei.
Right.
And like make decisions based on consequences. Like I just don't feel like that lives up to the standard set by the first half.
Right. Meaning, like, I say so what did we say for the second half in our idea?
So what we ended up going like the idea of it's like a joke or like a game, and then doing the Feynman thing about how being in a playful mentality unblocks certain things. So for the fool, it unblocks like taboos and instinctual self-restriction boundaries, and for the Ishtuna, it unblocks the things that prevent you from being truly creative in your learning.
No, but that was a chiddush one. What was the one that we said that you weren't satisfied with?
Oh no, that was Isaiah saying that the seal is not relating to his zima through chachma; he's relating to it as schok, whereas the ish tavuna is relating to decisions through chachma.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah. Really quickly, let's just look at one of the Mefarshim that said what Shira said. If I can find it really quickly, I think the Rambam said something like this. No, was it the? Oh, so it's interesting. Look at this. The Meiri does say what Isaiah said. So first he defines it. He defines the term zima. Then he says, "Lefi inyano nemar al kol maseh rav amar shaksil nakel beinav lasos avera b'schok v'hishtashus v'lo yabi la'achris." Okay, this is exactly what Isaiah said. Okay, good. So someone says what Isaiah said. That the ksil, where did Isaiah go? He's right there. Okay, the ksil, when he does every bad action, it's easy for him in his eyes to do the avera in jest and in having fun, and he doesn't look at the consequence. Ki arav leish lech. Oh, okay, this is a different pasuk about eating bread. Ki arav leish lechem sheker v'achar yimali pihu chatzatz. It's sweet for a man to eat the bread of falsehood, and afterwards his mouth will be filled with gravel. V'chachma leish tevuna, klamar ava ish tevuna mischakim be'inyan umevin la'achariso. The ish tevuna will apply chachma to himself and will understand the consequence. So that's exactly what Isaiah said. Okay, it's good enough for the Meiri, then it's good enough for me.
Oh, but the question is still there.
Yeah, the question is still there, but you see that, I mean, he couldn't have said it any more like Isaiah said it. Like, it's literally exactly what Isaiah said. So Isaiah's in good company, Yeah, okay. Where's the one for Shira? Oh yeah, here we go. This is Meiri's second one for Shira. Okay. Yesh lafarj me'inyan zima me'inyan machshava. So you could say zima means plotting or planning. That the ksil, as soon as something arises in his mind, he's quick to do it. Okay, like he acts upon it. It's like what do you call it when you laugh uncontrollably, or not uncontrollably, like
hysterical laughter.
A what?
Hysterical laughter?
No, that's more like a degree.
Nervous laugh.
Nervous laughter. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, nervous laughter, right? It's like nervous laughter or like the giggles. It could be either one of those, right? An uncontrollable laughter, right? Where it just comes out of nowhere. Rak al yidei machshava. Al yidei ezi machshava, okay? But it comes through some machshava. About ish tevuna mischakim aleha b'terem yasena. But the ish tevuna will think about it, will be wise about it before he does it. All these are practical lessons that are very necessary. So he's thinking in terms of to exceal, acting on a plan is as easy as a laugh that just comes out of nowhere. Like, as soon as it enters in his mind, he laughs. As soon as this thought enters into his mind, he acts. Whereas the ish tevuna applies chachma. He'll think about it in depth. Yeah, a little bit basic, but a good interpretation of the laughter part, at least. It's a good analogy. Okay, should we stop here for tonight? Okay, I think that was good. So we had the idea of, let's go in reverse order. We have the idea of acting on plans comes as easy to the fool as laughter, whereas the chacham will think about it in depth and based on and then act. Then we have Isaiah's idea, Isaiah and Tamar, about how the laughing, joking attitude is what allows you to rationalize doing averos, but the chacham will replace all that with actual chachma of thinking about the consequences, so he won't be prone to that. And then we have the first idea that we had, which is that just like the laughing mode, the joking around mode will remove certain inhibitions and allow you to go way, way, way more into evil actions than you had planned. So too, the playful mode for the ish tevuna will allow you to get further in chachma than you ever planned. And I think both of them do have to do with the way you view yourself, with the pressures you view yourself. Because if it's just a game, then you're not going to view yourself as an evil person when you do these evil acts. And if you're ish tevuna and you're worried about like ish tevuna stuff, like Feynman was, you're going to put that pressure on yourself, and you're not going to like be free in your thinking, And then there's the idea that Ken and I had.
Reminds me of mitzvah, Gorar mitzvah.
Yeah, right. It is like that. Well, I guess it depends on how you understand it. What particular aspect?
Oh, that like doing one thing will naturally lead to the next, and then in the opposite way, like an avera will lead to the next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because of the it's a good application. And then the last day was Ken's idea. The idea Ken and I had, which is that if you make the thing that the pasuk is about how you relate to the rules. So both the Ksiel and the Ishtuan are relating to not the particulars but to the rules. The Ksiel gets enjoyment from breaking the rules, and the Ishtuan gets pleasure from thinking about the rules in an abstract way. One thing I think that we were dissatisfied about is that didn't seem like the type of thing that Mishlei would talk about. Like we weren't sure, okay, well, what's the point Mishlei is making? And I don't think we got the answer to who the audience and what the practical application is there. But the idea itself, I think, was okay, or was good. Okay, let's officially stop here, and then we'll have after party for like 8 minutes, and then I think I want to daven Mariv at the same time that Yushi was davening Mariv, which is 9:30. So if you have to go, then nice learning with you, and obviously no Mishlei next week because it's Shavuos. So you're welcome to learn Mishlei on Shavuos, just not with me, unless you learn with me. Yeah, but not over Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Happy Shavuot.
All right, happy Shavuot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye.
I have an off comment.
Sure.
So after you showed us the video, all I could think of was The Italian Job and Ocean's 11.
Yeah, right. Heist movies are definitely
Yeah, that's
examples of that
11.
where
Yeah, okay.
they make it look like fun to do bad things by getting out of the rules. Yeah.
But they're not, their thinking and their planning is not simple. It's like, high level and then.
Right. That's true. Yeah, they make it. They give you the appeal of the chacham, but doing bad things.
Right.
Except
Okay.
one movie, which I'm not going to name because it's a spoiler. So if you know which one I'm talking about, then you'll there's a good heist movie about that. Yeah.
A follow-up
Thank you.
thought.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining, Shira.
A follow-up thought on the difference, I guess. Like, I feel like you took the second half of the pasuk in a creative way that I wasn't originally intending, and I liked the move, and I think it's a really cool idea. But I was just trying to flesh out where I probably would have gone without that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yep. And I was thinking that I was trying to oh yeah, that's helpful. So the I guess the part that I wanted to address where I was going is that there's two, like, I guess, junctions between in the first half. There's to a fool, like spoke to a fool, and then there's fool is doing Zima.
Okay, good. That's a good way to break it down.
Yeah, and so I was looking at like wisdom to person of understanding, and then person of understanding to blank.
Yeah.
And so for me, the same way, the way the fool interacts with Schok and interacts with situations using Schok, and almost like uses the Schok to define who he is, it will inevitably lead to Zima.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think, like, in terms of applying that same cause and effect relationship to the second half, it'd be a person of understanding looks toward wisdom and uses wisdom and relates to wisdom in a way that is as good as them doing X. And I don't have a fully good word for what that X is, but I feel like it's something along the lines of there's some type of good deeds or good accomplishments or plans even that are daunting.
Yeah.
And those plans, the fact that they're daunting might create some separation between us and those good plans.
Yeah.
But if we could just focus on the ideas of wisdom and just relate to the wisdom, and even maybe borrow from you a second of just enjoying with the interaction with wisdom, your relationship to the wisdom is going to allow you to slowly get closer to those goals and those things that seem farther away and scarier to address directly.
Yeah, okay. I really like this approach. And just in terms of reading it, something about when you just put it in those structural terms, kischok l'ksil, and then v'chachma li'ish tevuna, and ksil asozima. I think the cleanest way to do it is like that. And it's just being economical by only having the asozima in the middle. And if you take what the Meiri said and say that zima just is referring, like the way the Meiri said it is zima is, he says, v'hakol yote mimakom echad. All of these meanings of zima come from one place. V'hu inin machshava, hein latov, hein lara. It's planning, whether for good or for bad. Or like, like an actionable plan, whether for good or for bad. So that then is basically saying that the ksil, obviously his plans are bad plans, and he uses the joking attitude to delve fully into that. But the ish tvuna, his plans are good, and he's using the chachma as the gateway into that.
Yeah, and like an example is like if you look at, for example, a lot of the great, let's say, Jewish leaders or even recent Jewish leaders, and you talk to them about like their early years, I don't know if they could say they set out to become the leader of the Jewish people, right? Because that's a very daunting goal, and it's scary to like try to reach there. There's some separation between you and this bigger plan. But if you just focus on your relationship to wisdom, and you just like have you focus on kind of defining yourself as and relating to wisdom in a way that defines you as a person of understanding, meaning always trying to understand, and that's going to help you break down the barriers and drift almost without noticing toward those plans and toward those lofty goals.
All right, good. This really is now a fifth idea, a fifth explanation of the pasuk. Okay, good. I'm glad you talked that out. All right, sounds good. All right, I think I'm gonna go now, but pleasure as always. And Zach, good luck figuring out where you're going next and when you're going next. And
thank you. I think I might go to Great Neck next. So
okay. Well, I hope to see. I don't know where you'll be in 2 weeks from now, which is next time we have Mishlei. So hope to see you.
Then. Absolutely. Have a good Shavuot as well.
Yes, you too. All right. Take care.
Bye.